Okay, so you've completed your flight training and you're ready to go. But where are all the jobs? What happens in a job interview? Where should you look? Well, all that and more is coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Standby star 9000, 1013, Kilo 25. Coordinating Aileron and rudder, bank, balance, bank pressure rolling at 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there. Last runway 29 1631.
G'day and welcome to episode 87 of the Flight Training Australia podcast, the podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. G'day, I'm your host, Trent Robinson. Thank you for joining me. How are you all? Hope you've had a fantastic week. Before we get into part 2 of my Planning Your Career in Aviation series, I posted a photo last week on Instagram, which I know you all saw because you all added me and followed me last week, didn't you? Wink, wink. All right, and that photo was of a maintenance release, and I asked the following question. An MR item expires on the 13th of July. When does the maintenance release cease? And there was a interesting split in responses. However, I've got to admit, well done everybody, it wasn't as big as I thought it might be. So 64% of you were correct. It expires at the end of the day. 24% said it began or expired at the beginning of the day, and 11% of you just ran in the other direction. So well done, everyone. Thank you for participating again. The thing was, verifying the answer was no easy task, and I asked many senior pilots their opinion, and I've got to say it wasn't exactly convincing. And looking for the answer, I can see why. The CASA uses very ambiguous terminology at the best of times, and this was definitely one of them. Talking about things expiring at midnight, or it expires when the day has been reached. I mean, how vague is that? As far as I was concerned, the day has been reached at 1 second past midnight. That's when you've reached the 13th of July. But it is at the end of the day. So the maintenance release expires at the end of the day as written. So basically at 23, 59 and 59 seconds. After that becomes midnight. That is the last point of that day. And the maintenance release expires. So it becomes the 14th and the aircraft is no longer serviceable. So thank you for participating in the poll. All right, a heap to talk about today. And I mentioned last episode just about getting ready for your flight training and sort of preparing it to try and skew it in the direction of what your intended career path is. And a big thing to remember here as well is you don't actually potentially have any idea where your career is going right now. There's so many job opportunities and I guess different pathways that you could take. It's really hard to pin down an actual direction that you're going to end up. That all aside, we haven't talked about that, sort of had to talk about that, and we're now looking at what to do to get that first job and how to find that first job. And I really mean finding. So most entry-level jobs simply aren't advertised. They don't need to because there's just hundreds of applications. All right, so many of you are going, I can't find any jobs that sort of meet my criteria. Well, that's why. If you go onto websites like Seek and AFAP, which is the Australian Federation of Air Pilots, they advertise a lot of pilot jobs. There's pilot jobs on Facebook and that sort of thing as well. They'll typically reproduce the jobs that are listed or advertised. But these are very rarely first jobs or start-out jobs. The reason for that is, as I said, I've got hundreds of applications. They're usually not that particularly difficult as far as prerequisites and requirements go, unless they have contractual things like minimum hours and all that sort of stuff. So this is good in one sense that it makes the application process fairly straightforward, but it also puts you in a pile with a great many other applicants with pretty much the same qualifications. So somehow you need to stand out from the competition and present yourself as a qualified candidate. All right. Now, many of these things are, you need to convince a potential employer that you're committed to hanging around for at least 12 months. And this is probably the biggest challenge at the moment. This is, of course, also posing its own problem. You would love to say, yes, I'll be around for 12 to 18 months, no problem at all. Meanwhile, some job opportunity comes up, which is too good to pass up. And I think as frustrating as it is, everybody gets it. Everybody understands that. And potentially the person you're talking to has been in that very same situation at some point in their career. We have gone from a time where sitting in the one role for 1 to 3 years or something like that was pretty routine. But companies now are really looking for someone that's going to be around for at least realistically 12 months. For the time and energy and resources that they're going to put into you, that's really what they need to get a bit of return on their investment, essentially. So you don't want to cut off your opportunities if they come along. All right. And you just don't know when that is. That's the other problem. But some pilots are moving along onto their next job or different company within 6 months. Now, why do you care? Sounds great for you, doesn't it? And the answer would be, yeah, it absolutely is. However, every time a pilot leaves, a new one needs to be employed. So this means salary time for someone to go through resumes, conduct interviews, then conduct inductions and line training. And this can cost a couple of $1,000 to $10,000 more, especially if it includes an endorsement or type ratings or anything like that, which is typically not a first job, but let's talk about all of it. So multiply that by the number of pilots a year, and it can be tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars the company's got to make back before it even can begin to make a profit. Now, some companies are structured to set up this way. This is all factored into their costs, and they can manage that. But we are definitely seeing a real high turnover of pilots at the moment where companies are spending a hell of a lot more than they used to. Now, it has been the other way where it was a company market, not a pilot market. At the moment, it is a pilot market and things are good. But we've got to remember that if there's no companies around because they're all going bust, then that's not good for anybody. So if you can commit and do that realistically, this is a key point, and it is something that you want to demonstrate. So if you're not looking to go to the airlines, for example, and move on, make this known in your cover letter or your resume, because it will go a long way to helping you maybe get towards the top of the pile. But be genuine as well. Remember, everybody knows everybody in aviation, and if you're stupid enough to think that it's only to do with that little organization, well, word spreads fast. So if you cause trouble or anything else, I'm not saying you can't go for other jobs and that, but just be mindful about your conduct wherever you are. But again, we'll get to that in a minute. All right. So here's about 5 tips or so just to help you in the job search. And I have tip number 1. I have mentioned this multiple times. Episode 6. It's all in there. All right. As far as presenting or preparing your job interview and all that. But getting your resume and your cover letter customized, get it put together and align with the job requirements and qualifications for what you're applying for. All right. So if the cover letter addressing hiring criteria wasn't requested, then generally I wouldn't bother. If you want to put one together, that's fine, but then make it so that it sells you. Don't put a whole heap of word, soundbite crap in there about how wonderful and conscientious you are and I'm a hard worker and all that. Everyone's a hard worker. I'm not saying you're not, but it just doesn't mean anything. People are going to gloss over that. They're going to be looking for anything, interesting about you. So put something about yourself, your jobs, your hobbies, and if you do have anything over and above the typical applicant, by all means put that in. But no one cares about high school, what do they call them? All those merit certificates and all that sort of thing. Don't put any of that in there. Only information that's relevant to the job that you're applying for. At the end of the day, it's a first aviation job. There's not much more to say other than, your license requirements and your hours and that sort of thing. But if you've got 200 series time, absolutely put that in there. If you know somebody in the area, ask if they can be a reference for you and put that in there. All these things help whittle down the pile. Now, the next bit comes, what do I now do with this application? How often do you drop it off? And look, the answer is it really depends on who you're sending it to. If you show up too often, it might really annoy them. Other people see that as a sign of interest. So you're going to have to gauge that, and this sort of comes down to reading a bit of body language. I wouldn't bother trying to drop off a resume that hasn't changed every 2 weeks unless they ask for it again. I'd certainly have one ready to give, but I'd look at trying to drop it off every 2 weeks, pop in, see what they're doing. Just ask if the head of operations is available for a quick chat, being mindful that their time is precious. And I do mean that. It's not that we're special or anything like that, but there's just so much to do in a day sometimes. And as I say in the episode 6, it's sometimes I just don't have time to try and talk to you and help you out as much as we'd love to. I'd always make the time to, but other days there's just too much going on and it's just not going to work. So be respectful, be understanding, but take the opportunity to talk to somebody else, whoever's working the desk, other pilots in the room, people coming and going. Have a chat to them if you can. Find out a bit more about what's going on, what the operation's doing. All this will get fed back for you. With regards of what to wear, you want to be smart, semi-formal wear, nothing too casual. If you're going to wear uniform, feel free, but generally don't wear epaulets. Just wear your pilot shirt and pants and have enough copies of your resume with you ready to hand out. All right, tip number 2, network. Networking is crucial in the aviation industry. As I just mentioned earlier, it's a small industry. Even though it's Australia-wide, it is small. You'd be surprised who knows who, when and where. So don't think that you're just dealing with what's in front of you. Okay, take me, for example. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've got students who have become job applicants, who have become head of operations or senior pilots, crew, check-in trainers all over the place. All right, you'd be surprised what I hear about people and where things are, and the phone calls I might get asking me about somebody. So just be careful, all right? But networking, attend aviation conferences, job seminars, industry events, such as the ones CASA run, where you can meet professionals from all sorts of fields, all right? They're great just to meet a lot of chief pilots, head of operations, check-in trainers, even just line pilots, right? It doesn't have to be anyone high up necessarily. It's just what you know and who you know, okay? Join online aviation forums, connect with people online like LinkedIn and that sort of thing. Look at what people have to say. Build relationships with industry insiders, again, can lead to valuable job opportunities. At the end of the day, they don't know you very well. It's going to come down to you to sell yourself, but they just might know of an opportunity to go, Barry's looking for someone down the road. And you go, oh, fantastic. And that's what gets you the job. Some of these jobs are just, like I said, not advertised and they just offered around as word of mouth. So you just don't know. The person you talk to at the fuel bowser could be a future opportunity. All right. You just don't know. Always be respectful and courteous. You don't know who knows who. And I can tell you, I haven't been very impressed with some first contacts I've had. And, you then go and ask me for a reference or somebody asks me about you. First impressions count. So always be a walking resume and sell yourself. Don't let yourself down by doing stupid stuff. All right, tip 3, research the aviation companies. Conduct thorough research on who you're actually interested to work for. Don't send out generic resumes to whom it may concern and just copy, paste, and just change the name. All right, learn about their values, the fleet, their contracts, recent projects they might have been involved with, and maybe future expansion plans. Right? All this knowledge is going to help you tailor your application and the interview to demonstrate how your skills align with the company's goals. All right? Are you prepared to work where they work? Are you going to relocate to a remote base? Are you happy doing the kind of flying that they do? Don't just say yes just to get the job, only to find out, actually, you know what, I hate this. And then no one's winning. Okay, so do some research. Tip number 4, stay updated with industry trends, rules, and regs. All right. We're in a ever-evolving industry. So keep up to date with things. Doesn't even matter if it might not be in your immediate field or an area you can access. Remember, what's going up higher up the chain is absorbing pilots in areas where you're looking to go into. So it helps to keep an idea of what's going on. Subscribe to industry newsletters, magazines, aviation publications, online discussions. Just being knowledgeable in these industry topics, it's going to, again, make you more informed and potentially a more competitive candidate during interviews, all right? So that includes listening to Flight Training Australia. And number 5, prepare for interviews. All right, so prioritize interview preparation, by researching commonly asked aviation interview questions. But not just that, practice your responses. That is the hardest thing. It's like doing checklists and learning air law theory for flight tests, and then you get asked a question and you just go, "Bleh, I've got nothing more to say." You need to practice. So practice with your partner, a friend. If there's a group of you, do it in a round table. Give each other advice, nervous twitches, hesitation words, where your hands and feet are. Sometimes you'll be surprised you're not even aware of things you're doing. All this stuff can help you. Be ready to discuss your experience, things you've done, challenges you may have faced, and additionally research the company's recent accomplishments, challenges, incidents maybe, contracts they've just earned, and prepare thoughtful questions to ask the interviewer at the end. All right, so demonstrating your knowledge and enthusiasm for the industry and the company that you're applying for will leave a good, positive impression. Remember to be persistent and patient during the job search, as the aviation industry can be competitive. By implementing these tips, you'll increase your chances of finding a rewarding job that matches your skills and aspirations. All right, so expanding on point 5, there is a heap we can do here with job interview stuff. And of course, there are courses and seminars and things. There's a heap of information out there. A job interview in the aviation industry requires some thorough research, the confidence to perform, and a strong understanding of the industry's specific requirements. So here's some more tips specifically to help with a job interview. As I just said before, tip 1, and I'll reiterate it, research the company and the role you're applying for. All right, to gain a good, comprehensive understanding of the company you're interviewing with, its history, its values, its fleet. Research the role you're applying for, the key responsibilities, the required skills and qualifications. This knowledge will enable you to tailor your responses to highlight how you can contribute to the company's success. Remember, it's not about you. Number 2, review industry regs and trends. Familiarize yourself with the latest regulations, safety standards, and air law. You can expect to be asked some basic questions, like the aircraft you may have flown, just some speeds and things. Again, remember, chief pilots all flown these airplanes too, so you should know something about the aircraft you're qualified to fly. Why would they ask that? Well, because that shows how much you know about the aircraft you're going to fly. Do you put the time and effort in to learn the speeds, the settings, the fuel, the weight? These are all things that show your conduct as a pilot. What's a TAF used for? It's not necessarily going to be anything challenging, but you'd be surprised how many applicants these simple questions eliminate. Right, so having this knowledge demonstrates your commitment and allows you to discuss relevant topics during the interview. Tip 3, prepare specific examples. So think about your previous experience in the aviation field. And granted, at this point, it's going to be reasonably limited, but prepare specific examples that demonstrate your skills, your problem-solving abilities and accomplishments. Be ready to discuss challenging situations you encountered and how you maybe resolve them. All right, tip 4, practice common interview questions. I'm going to go through a whole heap in a little while, but research and practice answering commonly asked questions in the industry. I'll give you some shortly. Some examples, though, include questions about safety protocols, teamwork, customer service, and decision-making under pressure. So have prepared, concise, and confident responses, focusing on your relevant experience if you've got it, and achievements. Conduct those mock interviews with friend or family members to gain the confidence and refine your answers. Yes, it's only a first job interview. It's not going to be that complicated. It's not a top-level airline interview. But again, when you're applying with hundreds of others, these are the things that are going to set you apart. All right, tip 5, prepare some questions to ask the interviewer. At the end of the interview, you're likely to be given the opportunity to ask some, so have some ready. Prepare a list of thoughtful questions about the company, the team, training and development opportunities, and just the future of the company and where they're looking to take it. Ask some insightful questions, demonstrates your genuine interest in the role and your commitment to professional growth. All right, so let's have a look at some more questions to give you a bit of an idea. These are some that you might get asked. Tell me about yourself. You'd think you would know, wouldn't you? But you'd be surprised, again, how many people struggle to answer this. And it's usually because they're uncomfortable talking about themselves. But remember, we are hiring a person to insert into a company of team players. We want to know if you're a good fit. So do some preparation on this. Describe a challenging situation you faced at work and how you handled it. Okay, it could be another team member, staff member thing. It could be a challenge you were hit up with in the aircraft during your training, a conflict with the instructor. It could be anything, but just think of something. How do you handle pressure? Oh, pretty good. Sorry, unfortunately, that's not the question that's being asked. What they're asking is, how did you go about handling a high pressure situation? All right, so again, think of some examples. Describe a time when you had to resolve a conflict. Here's a good one. Have you ever broken a rule? Oh, no. I'm a good boy or girl. Okay. Everyone knows that rules get broken. If you say no, they're going to know you're lying. All right. So it's important to approach this one with honesty, transparency, and professionalism. Here's a suggested way to answer the question. Firstly, acknowledge the importance of rules and regulations. All right. So you could start by acknowledging the significance of rules and regs in the workplace, especially like aviation, where safety and compliance is paramount, and emphasize your understanding of the importance of those rules. You could then go on to provide an example of a minor or inadvertent violation. So if you have made a minor unintentional rule and violation in the past, you can briefly mention it. Ensure you present it in a context that reflects your commitment to rectifying the situation and learning from the experience. It is crucial, however, to avoid discussing any major or intentional rule violations that could negatively impact your application. Now, an example could be, while I strive to maintain a strong record of adherence to the rules and regs, there was a situation where I inadvertently violated a company policy. I had unknowingly overlooked a specific procedure while performing a task. Once it was brought to my attention, I immediately rectified it, reported it to the appropriate supervisor, and then took the necessary steps to prevent it happening again in the future. I learned a lot from that, and the importance of attention to detail and the significance of following established protocols. Okay, something like that. That's going to give a future employer, the confidence to go, okay, well, that sounds good. You've recognized what was done, you owned it, and you've done something about it. All right, so by responding in a thoughtful and honest manner, demonstrating your commitment by following rules and learning from past mistakes, you can address this question in a way that showcases your professionalism and growth mindset. Now, the next trick to finalize this segment is answering aviation scenario-based questions in an interview. It's essential to demonstrate your critical thinking, your problem-solving abilities, and knowledge of aviation operations. So finally, to wrap up, here is 9 tips to help when responding to aviation scenario-based questions. And first of all, what is a scenario-based question? Well, it is simply like an exam question. It's rather than a blank forward rule or reg, what is the privileges of your license? It's put into a scenario, something that's practical and meaningful to what you're actually going to go and do. All right. So first of all, you'll get asked a scenario-based question. Gather all the information. So begin by clarifying the details of the scenario to ensure you have a clear understanding of the situation. Ask for any necessary specifics or additional information that will help you analyze the scenario effectively. And let's face it, for a beginning job, it's going to be pretty straightforward. Like, you've had an alternator failure, what are you going to do? There's not that much more to ask, but later on down the track, things might get a bit more complicated. All right, number 2, identify the key issues and then prioritize them. So determine the critical factors and issues presented in the scenario. Prioritize them based on their potential impact on safety, operational efficiency, and other irrelevant factors like cost. So this demonstrates your ability to assess and manage complex situations. 3, apply the regulations, the procedures, best practices, and SOPs. Utilize your knowledge of aviation regs, procedures, and best practices to address the scenario. Consider the applicable guidelines and standards that should be followed in a situation like the one presented. All right, so that could be to pull out the QRH, That's a quick reference handbook, or the emergency procedures and the checklist, not just go straight into it and try and solve it out of your head. So treat it as a real situation. All right, number 4, consider potential consequences and risks. So analyze the potential outcomes and risks associated with the different courses of action. Assess the short-term and long-term implications of each option, and evaluate the potential consequences on safety, resources, and operational efficiency. Number 5, provide a well-reasoned logical response. Structure your answer by clearly stating your thought process and explaining the reason behind your chosen course of action. Using a concise and logical approach, supporting your response with relevant aviation principles, experience, or industry-specific knowledge. Number 6, communicate effectively. So make sure you clearly articulate your response, making sure to use appropriate terminology and concepts relevant to the job, being the aviation industry. All right, use concise and clear language to make sure you convey your ideas and solutions. Don't and and give generic answers. Don't beat around the bush, as they say, and completely avoid answering the actual question by every other possible answer either side of it. Number 7, consider teamwork communication. So highlight the importance of effective teamwork and communication in a given scenario. How would you collaborate with colleagues, air traffic control, other stakeholders? Could be calling back engineering, company frequency, other pilots in the area to work the problem. Number 8, reflect on lessons learned. If you have personal experience with a similar scenario, draw upon that and might enhance your response. Reflect on any lessons you learned from past situations and incorporate them into your answer to demonstrate your growth and ability to apply previous experiences. And finally, number 9, don't overreact. Many are missing out on opportunities from their poor responses to such questions. As I said earlier, what would you do in the event of an alternator failure, for example? The answer is not declare a pan or a mayday. All right, that's obviously way over the top. Yet, these are responses that have been given. So make sure you think about it, understand your aircraft that you're flying now, and use that to apply to what you might be flying. It doesn't really matter because the concepts and principles that I've just gone through pretty much apply to everything. All right, so in summary, research the company, find out the head of operations name. Do not send it to whom you may concern, dear sir, madam, and all that sort of thing. If you're responding to a job advertisement, address the job criteria in the cover letter and your resume content. Dress professionally, maintain good body language, express your enthusiasm for the industry and the opportunity to contribute to the company's success. If you're going to wear a pilot uniform, that's fine. Usually just don't wear epaulets, just your white shirt will suffice. Remember to remain calm, organized, and confident while addressing your scenario-based questions. By using the techniques that I've given you, you can showcase your expertise, problem-solving skills, and your ability to make sound decisions in complex aviation scenarios. And finally, be yourself. Remember, they're employing a person to fit into the existing team. They're not employing your resume. If you're awkward, overly uncomfortable, don't answer your questions well, potentially you're going to see this as a strike and you're going to miss your chance. So good luck. There's a stack of info there. I hope it helps you and maybe shows you where you are going wrong. The next question is, what can you expect to be paid? Well, next episode, we're going to discuss just that. We're going to have a look at typical pays for a starting out pilot, the pilot award, what it's all about, and what you can expect. All right, so that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening again. Thank you for all your feedback and questions that you've been providing to help contribute to everything I've been addressing in this and the next couple of episodes. If you've got anything you want to ask, you can do that. info@trentrobinsonaviation.com.au. You can also get me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and I don't know, something else I haven't figured out to subscribe to yet. If there's somewhere else you think I should be, let me know. And I will get back and answer you either directly or in the podcast coming up soon. All right, so that's the end of part 2. Part 3, pilot award. And then part 4 will be developing yourself, getting ready for the next job and the next career move and ultimately the end goal. Things you can do, tips for that. So that's the next couple of weeks, all set and ready to go. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, blue skies, and remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers, everyone.